If you've been scrolling through endless specs sheets, watching demo videos, and still feel like you might end up with a camera that looks great on paper but falls flat when you actually need it, you're not alone. The decision feels even heavier when the gear you're considering is supposed to be a workhorse for things like operating room broadcasts or a university lecture hall, where a missed focus or a lagging pan can mean real consequences. That's why I'm breaking down the FoMaKo 4K 60fps NDI HDMI PTZ camera today so you can walk away knowing whether this is the tool that will actually make sense for your setup. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the environment where this camera is meant to shine. The product is marketed toward hospitals, surgical training rooms, and professional teaching spaces, but you'll also see it pop up in live streaming studios and corporate webinars. All those use cases share one common demand: a camera that can be left to run for hours, track a subject automatically, and deliver a crystal clear 4K picture without a crew constantly adjusting focus. If you're a tech-savvy educator who wants to stream a live anatomy demo from a fixed point, or a medical tech team needing to capture a procedure from multiple angles without constantly swapping lenses, this is the sort of gear you'd be evaluating. The first practical strength that stands out is the 20x optical zoom paired with AI-driven auto-tracking. In a surgical theater, the camera can sit on a ceiling mount, zoom in on the operative field, and keep the surgeon's hands in frame as they move across the table. I watched a couple of case studies where the auto-tracking stayed locked on the instrument tips even as the staff shifted around, which saved the production crew from having to manually intervene. For a classroom setting, the same tech means you can start with a wide shot of the entire lab, then let the camera pull in on a student's hands when they demonstrate an experiment, all without a cameraman at the podium. That level of hands-free operation is a genuine time saver and reduces the risk of a missed moment. On the flip side, the auto-tracking is only as good as the algorithm's training set, and I found reports that it can get confused by rapid lighting changes or when multiple moving objects are in the frame. In a brightly lit operating room, the camera handled the glare fine, but in a dimly lit workshop where a presenter uses a laser pointer, the AI occasionally latched onto the bright spot instead of the presenter's face. If your environment swings between high-contrast lighting, you might need to be ready to switch to manual control or use the included PO NDI controller to fine-tune the tracking parameters. Ease of use is another area where the FoMaKo tries to differentiate itself. The NDI HX3 support means you can feed a 4K signal directly into a live production switcher without a separate capture card. The included NDI license makes that step painless, and the 3-channel 4K video out gives you the flexibility to send a clean feed to a streaming platform, a second feed to a recording device, and a third to a monitor for on-site staff. In practice, I set up a test where the camera was linked to OBS via NDI, and the latency was negligible, under half a second, which is acceptable for most live streaming scenarios. The controller that comes with the kit is a PTZ-powered joystick with a small LCD. It's not a touchscreen, but the layout is logical: pan, tilt, zoom, and a dedicated button for auto-track toggle. There's a learning curve, especially if you're used to mouse-driven PTZ software, but once you map the most used functions, you can operate it with one hand while monitoring the feed on another screen. Autofocus confidence is a mixed bag. The camera uses a Gen 3 AI assist algorithm that claims to lock onto subjects quickly, and in static lighting it does. I ran a side-by-side with a competing PTZ unit during a lecture demonstration, and the FoMaKo held focus on a presenter moving from a podium to a whiteboard without hunting. However, when I introduced a fast-moving handheld object, a medical instrument being passed between two surgeons, the focus lagged by about 1 second. That delay might be acceptable for most teaching videos where the focus is on the overall procedure, but if you need razor-sharp close-ups of fast motion, you might want a dedicated camcorder with faster continuous autofocus. Low light behavior is respectable thanks to a relatively large sensor for a PTZ box, but the camera is not a night vision specialist. In a dimly lit conference room with only overhead fluorescence, the image stayed clean up to about ISO 800 before noise became noticeable. The built-in noise reduction helps, but you'll lose some of the fine detail that you'd expect from a higher-end cinema cam. If your production will regularly sit in low light conditions, you'll either need to add supplemental lighting or consider a camera that offers larger sensor technology. Stabilization is not a primary claim for this model, and that's appropriate because PTZ cameras are